Welcome to the Ideas Pod at Raisina. I'm Sunjoy Joshi, Chairman, Observe Research Foundation. And me today is Excellency Minister Janena Tewani Minkomo, Foreign Affairs Minister for Panama. Madam Minister, or can I call you Janena?
Chennai is fine.
Janena is fine. I'm very intrigued. You have a very strong India connection. Where does that come from?
Well, yes, I do. I do have a strong India connection. My father is Indian. My husband is Indian. My parents-in-law lives in India, and I have worked in India also. And I have grown as a professional also, and personally in India. So yes, India has a special place in my heart.
And that brings you this year to Raisina. And I'm sure you've had lots of other meetings along with Raisina. You have been doing a lot, I believe, to promote not just businesses, Panamanian businesses and businesses from India into Panama, but you've been working generally with the idea that, and I heard you speak, that Panama is a truly globalist country. And Panama is the heart of globalization. Tell me, how is it the heart of globalization? And what have you been doing? What has been your effort all this while to get other countries, distant countries like India, better integrated, Asia better integrated into the Panama story?
Throughout history, actually, Panama was conceptualized from a globalized point of view. The canal, as I mentioned yesterday, it's a global idea. It was conceptualized by the French, built by the Americans, with, let's say, labor from all over the world, including Asia and the Caribbean. And you see, Panama Canal is currently administered by Panamanians. Globalization has helped us too, because more trade, more business through the canal. Even trade between the US and China benefits Panama because they need that route. So for us, and we are currently reconceptualizing the idea of the country. And as you say, and as I said also before, sometimes when you say Panama, you think about the canal only, but Panama goes beyond the canal. Panama was there before the canal. The canal is there because of Panama as a very strategic geographic entity, geopolitical entity. So when I say that, I want to express my view on the point that we are more than the canal, we are connectivity. We are a route. For us, bringing new actors, emerging powers like India, to use the Panama Canal and to explore more trade with Latin America and other regions is crucial for our economy. Definitely 6% of our GDP depends on the Panama Canal. So imagine.
So do you see the current trend towards deglobalization a threat, or do you see trade burgeoning as always, it has not really made a difference?
Well, it always makes a difference. We have been lucky that when one route keep change, a new route comes. With that, I want to explain one point. We have let's say, a trade matrix in Panama that is directly linked to the different routes that cross the canal. Our purpose is to enhance and strengthen those routes and bring new routes that include the canal as a passage. Countries, for instance, like India, are important because if there is a decoupling from one country or the other, India enhancing the footprint in Latin America and other regions will help us increase that trade or replace any other route that is, let's say, that has been diminished by geopolitical tensions.
So when you talk to businesses in India, when you approach business houses in India, what do you try to tell them? Why should they be coming to Panama? Why should Indian companies be making a beeline for Panama today?
I always, well, I know I have an Indian background, so I understand very well the way Indians think. And I always tell them, like, look, we are a 4.5 million country, but do not get carried away by numbers. We know and we understand we're not a market for you to sell or buy. We are the place where you can settle to stay in the Americas. We are the place where you can enter. We are the bridge where you can enter the Americas. And it has been our role traditionally throughout time. It's nothing new. It's not that we are creating something new. We're just putting our platform to the service of India. And businessmen understand that very well. When I tell them that Panama has the lowest inflation in the continent, that Panama is one of the fastest economies in the continent, that Panama is a lighthouse for democracy and stability in the continent, security in the continent, they understand, yes, this is a place where we can settle down and then spread over the continent.
So Panama has always been, it's a major center for logistics, a logistics hub. What has India been doing, or what can India do to utilize that better?
I think the right steps are taken now and have been taken by this administration, especially Dr. Jaishankar has done a very, very interesting and deep work in strengthening the political relations. Because yes, there is trade between India and Latin America, and that trade is organically increasing. That's impersonal, that is going to happen. But the political engagement is very important, so you can start putting the skin in the game. If India engaged politically more with Panama, and we are, for instance, trying to reshape, reimagine the country beyond the canal. And when I say beyond the canal, what I mean is that, again, we are connectivity. We want to develop probably a dry canal. We want to develop more ports. If India start getting more engaged in the political, let's say, ecosystem of Latin America, obviously they will be more interested to maybe invest in infrastructure, probably develop some ports, Indian businessmen and Indian companies. And India has been doing that in Asia, in the Middle East. But probably there is a time for Latin America. And definitely, the best option is Panama.
You spoke about geopolitics. You spoke about how certain routes become important, less important because of geopolitics. We've seen that happen in our neighborhood. But let me talk of something slightly different. Today, climate change also has become a big threat. And last year, we saw the Panama Canal actually being threatened by the droughts across that part of South America, reducing flows through the Panama Canal. And Panama, as the hub of that trade, needs to do a lot about ensuring that the region remains sustainable. What is Panama doing for that?
We're doing a lot. But the first part of the question is very interesting because the canal is so unique because it's the only maritime choke point that needs fresh water to function. You see the Suez Canal, you don't need fresh water. So that puts our country in a special, position when climate change effects impact Panama. El Nino effect is causing a reduction in the water that we use for the Panama Canal functioning. What we did is that, and not many people know this, but the Panama Canal is obliged by international law to remain open and neutral. And to remain open, if you don't have enough water, you need to take the right measurements. So the Panama Canal Authority they decided, look, we need to remain open. We can never close because trade depends on us. We are responsible for this. We need to take actions that are going to let me manage the El Nino effect and monitor the situation. Now, slowly, we are returning to the normality. However, there is a new geopolitical scenario now. What is happening in the Red Sea? Obviously, you will say, well, the Red Sea is far away. But many shipping companies have approached the Panama Canal to tell us we need to move the route. We understand it's longer, but Panama has the safest route. So again, we are already having some, let's say, restrictions due to climate change. And in addition, the traffic is longer because of the situation that is happening in the Middle East. So yes, whatever happens in the world impacts us. What are we doing? For us, it's very important to start coordinating with countries with a similar condition. Maritime choke points. Other countries that are maritime choke points need to talk. In fact, there are groupings. We were talking about multilateralism very recently, but this is kind of multilateralism that is very relevant to the times. The supply chain lines need to be open. So we are considering starting a dialogue or a coordination group between maritime choke points and freshwater canals, because the climate change is impacting every single freshwater passage in the world, not only the Panama Canal. So we need to talk and we need to share. So yes, we are doing a lot also for the stability of the region. And I'll tell you one thing. We are not only a maritime hub, a logistic hub, we are a diplomatic hub. Panama is the place where countries sit and talk. In fact, when Dr. Jaishankar went to Panama, he met all the SICA countries in Panama. SICA is the Central American Association. They all came to Panama to talk to him. So yes, we have also promoted democracy there. And we are part of something called ADD, which is Alliance for Development in Democracy, that cherish common values and spread democracy and development in the region.
So if sustainability is a major effort and sustainability becomes extremely important for countries like Panama, I also believe that you have a lot of investments in sustainable tourism. You've done a lot of work in sustainable tourism. Tell me, what should India be doing when we start looking at some of our own regions, and Panama we see as a great friend? What can Panama do? What can India learn from Panama? What can you teach us about how to look after fragile ecosystems in the seas, in our archipelagos, both in the Arabian Sea and in the Bay of Bengal? What can be done to make sustainable tourism in those locations?
This is a great question, because we have accumulated some experience throughout time. We have done it, we have been there, so we can tell you what you can do, what you should not, and what you should care about, and what you should pay attention. For instance, we have a very famous archipelago in the Caribbean Sea called San Blas Island. It's administered by indigenous population, and they preserve the environment. It's one of the most beautiful, if you have time, go to San Blas Archipelago and you will see. It's one of the most beautiful exotic islands in the Caribbean. And we keep sustainable tourism. But we understand the challenges the meaning of sustainable tourism, the challenges. For instance, you need to include the local population and you need to understand the dynamics. It's very similar to the case of India, for instance. That archipelago in the Caribbean is also very well and strategically located in the Caribbean, and it's very close to our neighbor, Colombia. So we understand that you need to include also the special situations that every island has. So in that sense, we can probably provide some knowledge exchange with India, and we can do something together, as I'm sure there is interest also to develop sustainable islands in this country.
Thank you so much, because I think we just have time for this. It was such a pleasure talking to you. And I do hope that this relationship between India and Janina, not just between the governments, ministers, diplomats and think tanks, but between businesses and the people grows. And you see many more Indians visiting Panama and setting up base there. Thank you for being here, being at the Raisina podcast.
Thank you very much. And I just want to conclude with something. Panama welcomes the protagonism of India in the world, and we are going to help and support India's footprint in Latin America.
Thank you. Thank you so much.